Is change your enemy or your friend? If you are a young person striking out on their own for the very first time, you might be really excited about making something of the world and of yourself in that time, in which case change very well may be your friend. But if you're the parent who's being left behind, watching your child leave, and the embrace of your arms, the protection of the bubble that you've created for them, change very well may be your enemy. The same is with organizations when you're trying to create new ways of working. Some people really like the old ways. It's comfortable. They're used to it. They don't have to think about it. It's something that's easy. Whereas a new way of working can feel scary, can feel very abstract. And others, though, may feel really excited about it because it is new and it's something to explore. If it's one thing I've learned in the last 20 years, working with nearly 40 different organizations and leading change, is that change is about people, not rocket science. Now, that is a bit of a double-edged sword, because it's not to say that change is simple. It's just that sometimes we make it a bit more complicated than it really needs to be. It's also not to say that people are simple, because we all know that A plus B does not necessarily equal C when it comes to people, like it does with rocket science. Another thing I have learned is that change will have a big impact on all of our lives, personally and professionally. There's a McKinsey report that states that in 1958, the lifespan of an organization typically is 60 years, or rather was. Now, that's 12 years. It also states that in 2027, 75% of the organizations that are currently listed on the S&P will no longer exist. Now, that's a startling statistic to me, because that means organizations will need to change and adapt, or they're going to die. So now we're in a situation when organizations have got to change, and they start to do that many times without consulting people. And people then have to deal with the ramifications of that and the impact that that then has on their professional lives as well as on their personal lives. And they have to deal with those knockdown effects. And as a result, they may feel scared, a bit duped, excited, anxious, worried. A whole host of different emotions will be going on. On top of all of that, there are all the external factors that are going on. Political factors within an organization as well within governments that have an impact on our lives. Different economic situations going on. These social norms happening. We deal with change on an everyday basis all the time. So when leaders say they don't think people like change, I don't agree with them. I think it's much more about the fact that people don't like being changed. Now, leading change can feel quite daunting and a bit tricky, especially when you want to support people through the journey and through how they're going to get through all of this. And back in the industrial age, it was much more the norm to be more directive as a leader. It was not only many times imperative from a health and safety perspective, but it was also expected. But now, in the digital and information age, our expectations are very different. On top of that, with the post-pandemic, our expectations are changing again. And we are starting to take a look at, what do we want in life? How do we want it? Do we want to create a bit more work-life balance? Where do we want to live? How do we want to live? What organizations, what type of organizations do we want to be working with? And that's just the tip of the iceberg. A lot of people have heard the analogy that change is a story or a journey. But my question is, what story do you want to share? And I use the word share very specifically because change is not a one-man band activity, even if it's a personal change. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I have a bit of a habit of always wanting to try and lose weight. It's just one of those things I guess I always go through. And the thing is, if my very kind and loving husband brings home my favorite chocolate bar or the crisps I really like, it's not going to really help me lose the weight because there's no way I'm not going to go and eat that chocolate bar or those bag of crisps. So even on a personal, small, what seems a very simple change, it takes more than just one of us to actually achieve it. So there are two initial factors we have to take into consideration and do when it comes to building resilience in changing environments. One, you need to create a vision, and not just a vision for now, but a vision for the future. And I would advocate 10 years down the line, because in 10 years a lot can happen. And we need to think about what it is that we want, and how do we want it? What do we want people to feel and think about us? And as an organization, how do we want our people to feel and think about us? How do we want our clients to feel and think about us? Because that helps us actually build the change that we are looking to do for the future and creating that resilience. Two, it's about creating short, medium, and long-term goals. Now, my experience has been when you've got your vision, the best way to do that is to work backwards. So you think about, okay, this is my vision. What do I need to achieve right before I do that? And there's your long-term goals. Then, what do I need to do right before I achieve those long-term goals? Those are the medium term. And then what do I need to do right before I achieve those? Those are the short-term goals. Because then we can sit there and very easily ask ourselves, all right, what is it that I need to do today so I can start on this journey for myself? And that can really help us build the resilience. It gives leaders the flexibility and the adaptability to change their styles as and when things happen, as we are dealing with the uncertainty and complexity of the world that we are dealing with, that is indicative today. And that can also help us when we're facing really difficult situations. And I was facing that not so very long ago. I was giving birth to my son on an operating table because it was a planned cesarean at the time. And it was an interesting event, to say the least, but they got him out fine. But then that's when everything went horribly wrong for me. And I went into anaphylactic shock 7 times. Now, I'll share with you, to be fair, I don't know if it was the first time, second time, third time, don't have a clue. But one of those very early times, I sat there and went, you know what? I've seen this on ER. This isn't good. I'm waiting for Noel Wiley to walk in any minute here and start saying things. And that's when I then started to realize, because as parents, and expecting parents, you have a vision in your head as to what kind of parent you're going to be and what your child's going to be like and how you're going to live and how you're going to parent and what the family life is going to be like. And I could see that vision during those moments of lucidity and realize my vision very well may not happen. And I started to think, what can I do to try and give my family, my kids and my husband, some semblance of that vision, even if I'm not here? What is the one thing I need to think of and tell my husband he's got to do so that some semblance of that vision happens? At the same time, my husband was standing in the operating room watching this happen. He was watching his wife go into anaphylactic shock, and all the doctors not knowing what to do. Apparently, loads of experts were coming into the operating room going, no idea, no idea. And he started to see his vision of what he envisaged for the family and the life with his wife and his kids start to potentially fade away. And he started to think, what is the one thing that needs to happen in order for this to be as best as I can possibly make it? And he said, she needs to hold him. And I remember him telling that to the doctors at the time. And I remember the doctor saying, no, she can't. And I even remember myself, no, I'm not strong enough, I can't. He said, she needs to hold him now. Because if this is the one moment that my son has to be held by his mother, he will have it. Now, obviously, I didn't die. And I don't know if it was because I couldn't think of the one thing to tell my husband in order for my vision, some semblance of it to be there, or because my husband managed to get me to hold my son in that moment and have a picture taken. Whatever the case may be, the point of the matter is that many times, especially with organizations and even with ourselves, we think having a vision and having short, medium, and long-term goals is fluffy. It's a nice to have. It's not something, it'd be great if we can do it, but we don't have to do it. And what I'm here telling you is that actually it's imperative. And it's not just imperative for survival, but it's imperative for actually thriving in the complexity and the uncertainty of the world in which we are dealing with. That helps build our resilient muscles so that we can deal with whatever it is that's coming down the line, whatever changes that may be. Because like we said before, change is about people, not rocket science. Thank you very much.